The VCT Americas Stage 2 playoffs is just around the corner, and it's time for us to make our predictions and pick'ems for the bracket. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are doing the VCT Americas Stage 2 playoff pick'ems and predictions. This playoffs is to decide which 4 teams will be going to champions. There are some scenarios where some really good teams cannot make it to champs, so it's going to be a very important bracket for all of these teams. So far, the most important bracket of the year in the Americas. So this is the bracket that we are working with. We are starting with Crew versus C9 and Sentinels versus 100 Thieves. Leviton and G2 are already in the upper semifinals because they were the top 2 seeds in Americas. Leviton will be awaiting the winner of the Crew versus C9 match, and G2 will be awaiting Sentinels or 100 Thieves. So we're going to be starting with Crew versus C9, and this is a matchup that happened very recently. These two teams did end their stage 2s against one another, with that match being a 2-0 victory in favor of Crew, beating C9 on Icebox and Split. Both teams have had very inconsistent years up until this point. Neither have made it to an international. Funny enough, these teams actually have the same exact record as one another. Crew going 5-1 in stage 1, C9 going 5-1 as well. And then in stage 2, both teams only getting 1 win the entire stage, and Crew's only win was against C9. So with this being a very recent matchup, both these teams are probably going to be looking at that last game of the stage as a reference to how this game is going to go. Keep in mind it was the end of the stage and both teams were already in playoffs, so maybe they weren't taking it as seriously. But this is where push comes to shove and where we will truly see which team is the better one. Looking at these teams' rosters overall, honestly, Crew does look like the better team, at least the more well-rounded team. But there have been some underperformances during this stage, and with Melzer being the new IGL, we haven't really seen enough from him to really be trusting him. However, I'm pretty sure he was the IGL that took them to champions last year through LCQ. But C9 have Oxy, who throughout the year has been one of the best players in the entire VCT Americas. So with both teams having pretty up and down years, both teams really looking mediocre when it matters most, this is basically just which team is going to choke less. And honestly, while I do think Crew is the better team, I do think C9 is going to take this one. Sorry, Latam fans. I just overall don't really see it with this team, and I see C9 being able to get the rematch win on them. I think Oxy is going to go insane. I think Oxy and Kesnet is going to be a very good battle, but overall I think C9 would be able to overcome it. Moving on to Sentinels versus 100 Thieves. So this is a matchup that we have seen many times throughout the entire history of Valorant esports. It's a tale as old as time, Sentinels and 100 Thieves facing off in an elimination match. Sentinels started off 2024 very strong by winning kickoff and then winning Madrid, those 2 tournament wins being part of the reason why they find themselves in this position right now, and they do have a lot of championship points to work with, so even if they lose this match, there still is a chance they make champs, but winning it would secure it. And this is a matchup that Sentinels typically win. Out of the last 5 matches that these two teams have played against one another, Sentinels have won the last 4. Last time 100 Thieves won was the 2022 LCQ, where Sentinels had Shroud, and that was a really bad year for the team. So will history repeat itself, or is 100 Thieves a much better team than those teams in the past? Honestly, having a hard time believing that. 100 Thieves have looked really good at points this season and then really mediocre at others, ending their stage 2 with a pretty bad loss against Loud after having a 13-1 win on map 1. Insane lead to blow, especially with their second map of that match being Bind. But maybe they just didn't care as much, but I think they should have if that is the case, because championship points are very important. But 100 Thieves still are a team that made it to top 4 in Shanghai. They honestly didn't look fantastic in that tournament, but they still made it to top 4, and then a very mediocre stage 2 to follow it up. So there are some concerns when it comes to 100 Thieves, definitely some concerns when it comes to Sentinels as well, who ended their stage 2 with a loss. Granted, against G2, who are an incredible team, and they had a pretty strong split aside from that. So while I do think 100 Thieves should be better against Sentinels than they have been in the past, I do still think history repeats itself and Sentinels make it through. Find it hard to believe that they're going to miss out on 2 internationals. I believe 100 Thieves still have scenarios where they can make champs if they lose this match. The whole championship points system has just made it completely annoying to think of playoff bracket because you have to think of all these annoying scenarios. But even so, I do think Sentinels get it done against them. Moving on to the upper semifinal, starting with Leviton versus C9. Already talked about C9, so mainly going to be focused on the Leviton part of this. Leviton are a very good team, having the best record in the VCT Americas, locking up the top seed in the Americas very early on in stage 2. They haven't dropped a map the entire split, and they have some very good players on that team. The vibes of this team seem to be a lot better than they have been in the past, and off the back of Ospos, this team seems to have really found its footing after having some pretty mixed results early in the year. Missing out on Madrid, having extremely good stage 1 and then a mediocre playoffs where they still did make it to Shanghai, and then a disappointing performance at Shanghai, and then stage 2 very solid. So we've seen this team crack under pressure. We've seen this team in the big moments not being able to get it done, but that is a part of being a newly formed roster. There are going to be some growing pains getting that international experience. While some of these players do have it already, as a unit they didn't have it, now they do, and they look like a very solid team. But C9 is no slouch. As I talked about, Oxy is a very good player who in stage 1 was neck and neck in the stats with Ospos. But overall, if I were to compare the two rosters, while C9 have some decent depth pieces like Rooney and Moose, and the last time that these two teams did face each other was a C9 win. That was at the beginning of stage 1. But honestly, that loss kind of woke Leviton up and kind of helped them get to where they are now. Losing early on can teach teams how to win, and it seems like they've kind of learned that. I do think Leviton get it done. I don't totally discredit C9 against them, but I do think that Leviton is the better team. I think they get it done. Moving on to G2 versus Sentinels. So this is another matchup that has happened very recently. G2 and Sentinels ended their stage 2 against one another, with G2 taking a 2-0 victory. Sentinels definitely not happy with how that game went. Not only were there tech issues and like 3 separate tech pauses, G2 was outplaying them and outcalling them the entire time. So Sentinels should really be wanting to win this one. They should come into this match angry, looking to prove doubters wrong. But G2 have been on a very good run since the end of stage 1, upsetting a lot of teams to be able to make it to Shanghai and then getting top 3 at Shanghai. Granted, their last 2 matches of Shanghai were very horrible, but in stage 2 they've looked incredible and they went undefeated. So can Sentinels win the rematch of this one, or does Valen have this team figured out and knows how to outcall them? Honestly, I do think G2 get it done against Sentinels. I think G2 are going to be looking to win this one, and this one will qualify them for champions. If G2 lose this one, they get knocked down to the lower bracket and then have a chance at missing out on champs entirely. And honestly, I just don't really see them doing that. Sentinels would already have their champs confirmed, and as I said, they would probably come into this one angry and wanting to prove G2 wrong. I just think G2 is just going to want it more, just that little bit, and get it done. So this brings us to the lower round 1, which is Sentinels versus C9. This is a matchup that happened in stage 2, and Sentinels really took it to them. That was a 2-0 victory for Sentinels, not allowing C9 to even get to double digits on either of those maps. Sentinels, I think, are generally the better team. Are C9 capable of an upset? Yes. And if I apply my same logic to the G2 pick over Sentinels, they are probably going to come in a lot hungrier than Sentinels in this one. This would be a do or die match for C9, and I think Oxy is really going to try to make this one happen. But overall, I do think Sentinels are really going to be motivated to try to fight for that top spot, and I think they're going to get it done. And I believe this would mean that 100 Thieves would make it in off of champs points over C9, which obviously would be a heartbreaker for C9 fans, but I just don't really see it for this roster this year. They have some good pieces, but I don't see this team as good enough to make it to a champions, but they absolutely could do it and prove me wrong. So this brings us to the upper final with Leviton versus G2. So the last time these two teams faced was in the end of stage 1. G2 were able to beat Leviton in that best of 5. These are two teams that have different play styles but very strong talent across the board. G2 play very disciplined, they play slow, they're very solid on defense, while Leviton have some incredible shooters and like that fast-paced style, but they're not similar to like a Paper X where they just go, go, go and just not think of anything. They're a smart team. And overall, I do think Leviton, off the back of Ospos, who has been looking incredible on Neon lately, I think they're going to get it done and be able to go to grand final. I don't think they're going to want to lose to G2 again. So this would bring us to the lower final, where we would see another matchup of G2 versus Sentinels. This one is kind of a tough call. If we actually think about this matchup in terms of how it's gone throughout the year, technically G2 have beat Sentinels both times that they faced them. There is a massive asterisk on the first time that they played each other, because that was in the play-in on kickoff, where Sentinels just needed to win a map to be able to make it to the playoff stage, which is exactly what happened. So G2 just won the last 2 maps without needing to, but still a win is a win, and G2 were able to beat them at the end of stage 2, so are they going to be able to do it again after doing it early in the bracket? This one would be a best of 5, and in that best of 5 context, I do think I prefer Sentinels just a little bit, so I am going to pick them to go to grand finals. I don't know if I see G2 beating Sentinels this many times in a row. Just kind of getting flashbacks to G2 versus Team Heretics at at Shanghai, where G2 beat them the first 2 times and then Heretics just smacked them around the last time. But either way, all 3 of these teams would have qualified for champs already, so not the highest stakes match. So ending this off in the grand final, Leviton versus Sentinels. Who takes this one? I like both of these teams. I think Sentinels have probably a better IGL in John QT, probably a better coaching staff as well, and a more well-rounded roster. But when it comes to top-end talent, who really has the edge here? Leviton, they have Ospos and Kane, who don't underrate that guy. He is very good. And Tex recently has been really finding his game. Calm is still a bit of an issue, and Mazzino isn't the most outstanding player, but he's good enough. So Sentinels maybe have a more well-rounded roster while also having that top talent. But overall, I think Leviton are going to be going on a tear during this bracket, and I think they're going to get it done without having to go to the lower bracket. I do think Leviton are going to win the VCT Americas Stage 2 playoffs and be the top seed heading into champs. We'll see if that ends up mattering, because champs is starting off with a group stage. I really wish they were just doing Swiss, but Valorant and its formats. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but this is what I think the bracket is going to be. Let me know in the comment section down below what your bracket is. Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.